So do you want to reach your people, or do you want your people to be reached? Think on that for a second. And I want someone to unmute and tell me what is the nuance in that.
And one of them, I don't have to be the hero.
All right.
Good job. One of the things that for some people may be depressing to hear, but as strategy coordinators, we have to hear often is it's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about your calendar. It's not about your gifting. It's not about what you want. What is it actually about?
About
It's
God.
about what, yeah.
Say that again.
You guys said.
I said God and his glory.
It's about God and his glory. So if we come back to Habakkuk 2:14, that the knowledge of the glory of the Lord will cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. It's about the knowledge of the glory of the Lord. It's about God's glory. And as strategy coordinators, remember, we've identified a gap where the gospel is lacking, where healthy indigenous reproducing churches is lacking. And so when we think about the three catalytic activities, 0 to 1, networking, and training is really not about me. It's about the key to God's strategy is equipping the saints, ordinary believers, for the work of the ministry. How do I find people to train who may be same culture or close culture? Networking. Sometimes God just brings them to us. And then when we find a same culture or near culture believer, or someone who just wants to reach your people group, what do we need to do? We have to equip them to do the work of the ministry. And for a lot of people who get into ministry, they really like being with people. They like housing the homeless. They like feeding the hungry. They like caring for physical needs. That gives them fulfillment. And those are good things. But for the strategy coordinator, we have to look beyond the good things to the great things and saying it's not about you. It's not about your calendar. It's not about your giftings. It's about what is it going to take to reach this people. So I know you've had David Garrison on. He's probably used that phrase, Wigtake. What is it going to take? So the paradigm shift that we have to go through is shifting from what can I do? I would say most cross-cultural workers, their paradigm is what can I do? Well, I can start an ESL. I can go out and share the gospel. I can disciple about 6 people a year effectively. That's what I can do. Versus what is it going to take to see lostness impacted in a large unreached people group? So if we think of just, I've been doing a little research on Yemenis. There's not, millions and millions and millions of Yemenis, but there's several million with very, very, very few believers. So whenever you start to think about what would it take to reach Yemenis in a country that's kind of almost at war with the United States, where it's really difficult to go and live, asking the question, what is it going to take? And that opens up a whole nother can of worms that the strategy coordinator starts to go through and sort and say, what is good, what is better, what is best? And in that, being a catalytic agent. And remember, being catalytic means it doesn't happen without you, but it doesn't depend on you.
Bud, can I say one little thing here, please?
Please do.
You said it earlier, but I want to call attention to it. Guys, our spiritual gifting, it's very important that you know what your spiritual gifting is, because for some of us, and I'm one, I love to help people. I love to give away coats and blankets and food and everything, but I have to guard against letting that run me and get me into trouble. So be aware what your spiritual gifting is, and remember what the task God has called you to do is, and don't let your spiritual gifting get in the way. That's the best way I know how to put it.
Yeah, and it's not that we want to ignore the gifts God's given us, but we want to harness them in a way that's really helpful. It's a good point. So what I want us to think about, this will be a discussion around this, is what are some examples, and let's make this really practical. What are some examples and you isn't like, that's you, like actually you, that you need to shift in your strategy based on this, what can you do versus what needs to be done paradigm? And so this is maybe a point of just openness or maybe even asking the question, hey, is this something? But I want us to have a few minutes to discuss around this, because I think this is one of the most important paradigm shifts, is looking at it from what is it going to take versus what can I do? Yeah, some of you have spent time around Ying-Kai, and I believe I'm attributing this to the correct person, but I think it was Ying that really made the idea mainstream, at least to me, is there's two types of people in the world. People that need to hear the gospel and people that need to be trained and mobilized to share the gospel. And so when we start looking at every person we meet through that lens, and we know what is it going to take to reach a population segment of, I'll pick a number, 10 million, that means we need a lot of people engaging with that people group, to the point that there becomes, again, we think back to what is the role of the strategy coordinator. It's not just mobilizing people from the outside in. We're mobilizing people from the outside in for the purpose of seeing what? Local ownership of the core apostolic task, which involves from entry all the way to leadership development and multiplication. So we have to, but to get that breakthrough, we may need to mobilize 1,000 people from the outside to find that as you heard Kevin talk about fourth soil person. To find that fourth soil person, we may need to mobilize a lot of people from close culture or even just outside culture.